Bro, he's completely right. If you go back and you look at the origins of American racism, you'll see that it has never served the interest of white people. Like, it's paradoxical that in order for the Southern social structure of planter, poor white, slave to even exist, it required an indifference of poor white people to the suffering of black people under the institution of slavery, while that same institution deliberately excluded them from the economic and political process. Let me make it clear that being born a white man in the South didn't mean you would accomplish shit. You had to own property if you wanted to vote in order to hold office. And how were you ever going to acquire property if no one was ever going to pay you? Because why would I pay you when I got slaves? Slaves that ultimately it's your indifference that allows me to have. Hell, it wasn't until the Civil War that every state affirmed that just being born a basic white man meant that you had the right to vote. And I suppose they had to whenever they got ready to send the massive poor whites off to war. It's like, hey, bro, go fight this war, and when you get back, I'll let you vote for me. Like, it's a myth that the South couldn't build factories, bro. The South had the access to capital. They could have built factories and rivaled the North in manufacturing industry, but there's a problem with that. One is that the indifference of white people is built on the propaganda and the belief that God made black people to be inferior to white people. But that kind of goes out the window the moment you have a factory that's being operated wholly by slaves doing skilled trade work. So if I'm a planter and I'm considering building a factory, and I understand that I can't operate my factory with slaves due to the constraints of the racist ideology that I've employed across the South, that means that I've got to employ white people, which brings me to my second problem. If I'm going to be hiring white people, I'm going to have to pay them. And if I pay them, that means that they might have the ability to acquire property. Property being the minimum threshold for voting. You might start voting in a way that I don't want you to. I'm also going to have to educate you to a degree in order to have competent people to run the factory. At a bare minimum, I have to address the illiteracy in the South. So you mean I got to pay you and I got to teach you how to read? You're going to be able to vote and you're going to be educated? At that point, you pose a very real threat to me as the ruling class in this delicate social and political balance that I've created that benefits only me. In the interest of maintaining control on this delicate system that they had built, they decided against educating the masses, they decided against building factories and creating upwards economic mobility for the poor whites. Are you drawing any parallels between what happened in the early 1800s, mid-1800s, and what has happened today with the demise of manufacturing, the degradation of education, the elimination of voting rights? Are you starting to see a pattern? I say all of that to bring it back to his point. He's right. Racism has always existed as a functional tool for classism. It has always served to keep the ruling class protected from us ever meaningfully organizing and challenging them on anything. It has always existed to keep us economically and politically destitute. It has always existed to keep you exactly where you are.